Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson, your 7-foot host from Villanova University, and my partner, the point guard from Syracuse, who became a shooting guard after Pearl Washington showed up, the great Sonny Sparrow. How are you?
Good.
What's
If you
going
want
on,
to play
son?
when Pearl comes, you better become a shooting guard.
Listen, I had to throw a point guard reference in because our guest today is one of the better point guards probably ever to play. He's this
Yep,
guy. This
one of the
guy
point
was
gods.
He was in the Point Guard,
Yep.
documentary. Yep, he was part of that, and grew up in the Bronx. And I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times, and real good dude. So, without any further ado, Sonny, let's jump in right here. Okay. Our guest today was a 17-year NBA pro, mostly with the Knicks, Portland, and Washington. He was a DePaul University legend, Sonny. Legend from DePaul, New York City point guard from the Bronx, New York. Welcome to the show, Rod Strickland. How are you, Rod?
I'm good. I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're
We're good.
good.
Thanks,
We're
man.
good. Thank you for coming and hanging with us. Appreciate that. It was took a little while to rope you in, but you still got the
Absolutely.
moves, Rod. You still got the moves.
Still got the in and out
You
behind the back.
crossed me up about 3 times, bro, and I was like, hey, but I'm a big guy, so I'm not supposed to hang with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you're not supposed to switch screens, Chuck. You're supposed to stay with
yeah,
the guy.
exactly. I'm
We
going
made
straight
it.
ahead like a bulldozer. Um, so fun. We start out sometimes with different things, and we do our due diligence here, Rod. This is not
Mhm.
we flip the lights on and we got a show. Okay, we actually do stuff here. We are. What are we, Sonny?
We
We're
are
professional
professional
journalists.
journalists.
That's
That's
right.
right.
So, fun
Absolutely.
fact about Rod Strickland. Okay, you're Kyrie Irving's godfather, right?
Yes.
See, a
Yeah.
lot of people. I talk to a lot of folks, and not a lot of people know that. That's pretty cool.
Right.
I mean, so talk about that. How did that? I know it was his dad was one of your friends since what, the third grade, Rod?
Yeah. Yeah. You guys call him Drederick. I call him Dedrick. But
Right.
yeah, we've known each other since the third grade. Grew up in Mitchell houses in
Mm-hmm.
the Bronx, and we just grew up everyday life. Grew up in AAU with the Gauchos
The
with each
Gauchos,
other.
yeah.
And yeah, so basically family.
That's great. That's great. So you've seen Kyrie grow up and grow into the player that he is today, right? Was that what was he one of the kids that you saw at an early age that you said, hey, this kid's got to keep
No,
on.
no, because during that time I was playing and I was in the NBA, so I was moving around. So I never actually got to see Kyrie play when he was younger. I didn't
Hmm.
really see him play until he was in high school.
Okay.
And I remember going to the LeBron James. My brother called me one day and said, like, Kyrie's a pro. Like, he just out the blue. It was like ninth grade. But
Wow.
I hadn't seen him play. Uh, so I finally saw him play at the LeBron James camp. And I saw the right hand and the left hand and the ball handling, but the finishing package. And right then and there, I knew he was special.
It's funny because, your high school coach, when he left Truman High School, Steve Lappas, he came to us, and that was the year we won the national championship. He shows up and we win the whole thing. So to this
Yeah.
day, he takes all the credit. You know that, right? You
Yes,
know
I'm
how he
sure.
is. I don't have to
Sure.
tell you,
Yes.
that's Steve Lappas.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely. That's my
funny,
guy.
you said that about Kyrie, like your brother came to you and said he's a pro. Steve
Mm-hmm.
told me, when he first saw you play, you were 15 years old, and he
Mm-hmm.
said he made the comment, "That's a pro at 15."
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
remember that.
Right. Which is crazy to hear for me, right? Because no one,
Right.
obviously, no one told me that, and I
Well,
know
he
at that
wouldn't tell
time,
you. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
right, and I know at that time, I obviously didn't project myself as that. I was
Hmm.
still trying to figure myself out. So to hear Coach say that, years after, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, the thing was this, when we got Steve, we broke his chops, man, relentlessly. I don't know if there was truth to this or not. It really, at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. But we were like, okay, well, where's Rod? We got you. We got like the raw end of that deal, Rod. You know that, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
worked
So
out. We still won the thing, okay?
right.
But
But I got to tell that story because Lap is my guy. I was always
I
fond of
know.
Lap. Lap was great for me at Truman High School, obviously. And when Lap went to Villanova, I knew there was pressure, and I knew people thought like I was going to follow Lap. And to be quite honest with you, the only reason why I didn't follow Lap was that you guys' style of play at that time. Like I knew who I was. I knew I had to be in the open court.
Oh
I
yeah,
knew transition was my game, and I knew there were times I could struggle in half court. So DePaul gave me that cushion. Like I knew they had Kenny Patterson, who was from New York City.
right.
I idolized him. I watched those guys play. They got up in the open court, and that's
Yeah.
the only reason that I didn't follow Lap. And I'm sure Lap was a little disappointed, but I was worried about style of play.
No, you were
It,
right.
the rumor has it, Rod, that Steve's not even your favorite Lapis. Is that true?
That's true, Pete, my guy.
I wasn't even
Absolutely.
talking about Pete. Pete's good too.
Absolutely.
I was talking
Well,
about
the
Harry at
misses.
Lapis.
Oh yes, my bad. The misses for sure as well. So
Yeah.
yes, I'll say Harriet and Pete. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Because really, Harriet kept him off of me.
Right.
So yes,
Right.
yes,
I could definitely see that.
yes, yes, yes,
We know her a long time as well. The Lapis family
yes,
know everybody there. They're a great family. And
yes.
he went on to be the head coach. So talk to me about, he also told me, you guys talk to me about you beat Pinckney in Ed's last high school game, I guess, to advance in the quarterfinals of the city championship. Was that right?
No, no. Ed was gone.
I was gonna
Ed
say.
wasn't there. No, we played. Actually, we beat Kyrie Irving's father,
Ah,
Irving,
okay.
to get. Yes, we beat those guys. Him and Brent Williams and Kaim Long. They had a really great team, and we beat them to kind of advance.
Yeah.
No, we mentioned Kyrie's handle, but Coach Lappas says the same thing that people forget your handle, Rod. So
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that and how you developed that.
yeah, I do think people forgot that. Uh, I do think I had high level ball handling skills and IQ. Uh, but just growing up watching the greats, I was a Magic Johnson fan. I was a Pearl Washington fan. My older brothers, I was fans of those two guys. Uh, there's a guy named Mikey Edwards who no one may know of. Went to the University of New Orleans from Patterson Projects, right down the street from me. He was a 6'6" ball handler. So I had all these visuals. And then, I grew up. I was coached by Dave McCollins, who was my coach for Mitchell Houses and the Gauchos. And then I had someone named Garfield Hurd, who kind
Oh
of
yeah.
gave me all
Remember
these
him?
ball handling. Yeah, from also around Patterson Projects. And I just worked relentlessly with ball handling skills, stationary and on the move. So I would have to sit down in almost a defensive stance with the ball, and I would have to put it in the same spot 200, 300, 400 times in a row. And if I messed up on 301, you got to start all over. And then you would start doing it full court. So I put in a lot of work ball handling. A lot of times now, we players 2,000, 3,000 shots a day, they say. But I actually did that ball handling. I put in like relentless time, perfecting my craft.
And you had to use creativity too. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you were the kid that you're in the streets of New York City in the Bronx, right? You probably were never seen without a basketball in your hand, right?
That's a fact. That is a fact. So if you're in front of the gym, you bouncing the basketball. If you go into the store, you bouncing the basketball to the store. My brother always tells me, my oldest brother Steve, he always tells me, why do you never tell a story? Mitchell houses, Mitchell projects. We're in a small apartment, four of us, what, one, two, three small bedrooms, small hallway. And I used to get newspapers, fold them up, and make 2 baskets, tape them against the walls, one by the door, one by the bedroom. I would put a sheet in the middle of the hallway. I'll put it on the wall, and I'll have a pen in my pocket, and I'll play a one-on-one game with myself. So I'll go
Wow.
up and down. I'll be Pearl Washington or George Gervin or Dr. J or whoever, and I score. I go back. I put 2 points, and I'll play a whole game all day. I might play 2 or 3 games, and I always made sure that my favorites made the last shot. But it was a one-on-one game with myself. So when
That's
you
great.
say creativity, I think I had a creative mind. And then,
Yeah.
I idolized Pistol Pete Maravich, George Gervin, Dr. J, Magic Johnson, Pearl Washington, all these guys who gave me a visual. And then from
Mhm.
there, I went to the neighborhood, went downstairs, and I tried it out against the older guys. And that was one thing about back in the day, we played against older guys. So I
Yeah.
had a chance to be 13, 14 and be on the court with the older guys because I would pass the ball. Because I thought behind the back pass to get an ooh and an ah. So, hey, let's get a little shorty. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
yeah,
Well, you're smart because, if you went out there and tried to take all the shots, they would kick you off the court. You had
absolutely.
that, the
Absolutely.
point guards are supposed to be the brains of the team. Me and Sonny go back and forth with bigs and point guards all the time, Rod. So,
It
Yeah,
is what it is, right?
yeah,
Just tell
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Gee.
So you talked about this game you played and your favorite player makes the last shot. Talk about
Hmm.
when you made the last shot in the state championship game.
Yeah, that was, oh, wow. I have that DVD too. I got to find it, but I have the DVD for my city and state championship. But, when I look back at it, it was all those hours of being creative and understanding the backboard and practice on the backboard so that no matter what angle I was at, I was able to find the backboard, put some English on it. And that last shot to win the state championship was exactly that.
Yeah. So talk about that for a second. Coach Lappas calls you the Willie Moscone of the backboard. Okay, the famous pool shooter playing all the angles. Was that something that you worked on because you had to figure out how to get balls to the rim against bigger guys, or how can you get to the rim and make a shot? Maybe not having the right angle as you're driving, you're contorted each way back and forth. Is that how that
Right.
came about, or is that something that you just thought I better master this so I can score?
No, to be honest, it was watching Dr. J, George Gervin, even Pistol Pete Maravich,
Yeah.
right? They played on the backboard. They had the finger rolls, right? And so in my mind, like I wanted to be like that. And then from there, being from New York City, at that time, I would say like we had the craftiness, we had the creativity. So it was just a matter of going on the court and studying the backboard. But I think the visual came from Dr. J, George Gervin, Pistol Pete, and some of those, some of the pros that I watched. And I just tried to perfect it. And then it was a way of like, how can I score? I was small. I wasn't, obviously wasn't 6'3". So I had to find a way to be creative to score the
Hmm.
basketball.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell young people like the biggest thing about basketball, about sports is your creativity, the creative mind, right? We got all these copycats and everybody's watching. Well, I watched and I copied, but then I invented on my own.
and be expressive. That's the way to play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, I want to ask you about with the recruiting process in DePaul, because DePaul with Ray Meyer had such a tradition of great play, great recruiting, great talent, getting guys from New
Hmm.
York, etc. And then, uh, did Ray start recruiting you before he retired, or was it just Joey?
It was just Joey and his staff. Jim Molinari was probably the big recruiter, and he has the greatest personality. So, like, he just reeled me in. But to be quite honest, they didn't really have to recruit me. I wanted DePaul was like my dream school. I had a chance to visit UNLV, Georgia, Villanova, Syracuse, Pittsburgh. Like I had these trips that I could have lined up, and I went to DePaul, and that was it for me. You know, I got to sit in front of Kenny Patterson, went to a Michael Jackson concert with him and Ty Corbin, and I was hooked.
Now,
We
what
took a
did you
couple of
think of
recruits to that show
Chicago? Because
too.
Chicago, we were talking before, it really wasn't a pro basketball. I mean, DePaul really had captivated Chicago. What was it like playing there?
Yeah, I don't think people understand that. Like we were the team.
Right?
Like DePaul was a big deal. You know, you had the Bulls. You know, Jordan came in what, 84, but
Yeah.
like DePaul was a big thing. DePaul was a big part of that city. So you know that was the lure as well. You know, I get to go to a big city with tradition. You know, I knew of Mark Aguirre, Terry Cummings,
Yeah,
Kenny Patterson. They were top 5, top 10 in the country. You know, people don't understand that about DePaul now, but DePaul was a big, big deal. You know, young people ask me, what school you went to? And I say DePaul, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But DePaul was a big deal.
Mm. We
yeah,
played you in the dome, and Terry Cummings was just a beast, just a beast.
Yes,
We
yes,
couldn't do it.
tough.
He was first guy I ever saw that looked like a muscle guy that could
Yeah,
move just gracefully. Him and Otis Thorpe were the two most physically gifted physiques.
and he was mean.
yeah, yeah,
You know, on the
yeah,
court, he was mean.
yeah. That's true. That's
He
true.
could play.
Yeah.
You play with a guy. You play with Dallas Comegys too, right? I mean, I
Yes.
remember he
Yeah.
was a Philly guy. We had the
Yeah.
entire Villanova team my freshman year sitting on the stage watching him play at I can't think of the name. Roman Catholic. Roman
Yeah.
Catholic. He was a hell of a player too. I mean, you had some good guys that who else was with you? Edwards too, right?
And that was, yeah. Dallas
Yeah,
Comedy was a great player.
yeah,
Dallas was like one of those guys that, you know, we might play a team that's not that good, and he may coast from time to time. But when it was time for a big game, Dallas Comedy's always stepped up, like
yeah,
like a big time gamer. And Kevin Edwards, you know, we got drafted back to back in the 1988 draft. I was 19, he was 20. You know, Kev came on the scene as a JUCO transfer. We knew nothing of him. And the first day he stepped on campus and I played with him, I was like, wow. You know, I
yeah,
don't know what this guy is, but we have one.
yeah,
Well, you talked
yeah.
about the draft. What was that like getting drafted by your hometown team, Knicks?
Uh, it was weird because I never expected them to draft me. They had Mark Jackson, who was just rookie of the year. So
Hmm.
they weren't on my radar, and I don't believe I was on theirs. But as the draft went along, Seattle told me they would pick me at 15. They didn't, and I think for the Knicks, I was best on the draft board, and I
Yeah.
just think they felt like they had to pick the best person, and they did that. But you know, I got booed. They wanted Shelton Jones in the building. Like
Yeah.
Mark and Shelton
Oh,
was
St.
there
John's
together.
guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they wanted Shelton Jones, and I got booed in my home city, which I thought was weird. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, did you?
How'd you overcome that? Because you had a 17-year career. You had a great career in the NBA.
Well, I overcame that because I didn't care. Like you booing me, I'm like something's wrong with you. Like,
Right.
so, you know, I'm wherever I'm at, I'm going to go play. You know, I'm confident in my ability. So the boos didn't discourage me. It just was weird. Like, you know, you
Yeah.
guys born. I'm from New York City. Like I've been on the playgrounds. I have a
Right.
history here. So it
Yeah,
was
you're a
more
good
weird.
fit. Yeah.
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 Talk about that. That's, you're describing toughness really is what you're describing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
talk about what goes into
Mental
making up a
toughness. Yeah.
good point guard. You know, some of the attributes of a really good point guard. And I know you've been on the playground, and I want to talk
Yeah.
to you about that because that was the heyday, man, of playing in the parks and stuff. And you also had an experience with the Gauchos playing AAU, where
Absolutely.
on Long Island there was really no AAU per se at that time. You know, it was like Riverside and you guys, and that
Yeah.
was pretty much it, right?
hmm Yeah, no, I think like as a point guard, and I thank Dave McCollins for this. I think he taught me how to care for others, like on the basketball court. Like, how do you get your teammates involved, making the right pass? If the big guy get a rebound or get a steal and he runs the lane, you better give him the ball. If somebody's open, you better give him the ball. Because I always say, and the game has changed, but just as a point guard in my mind, and I tell some of my young guys that, like, as a point guard, you got to be wrong even when you're right. So, meaning you could throw a pass and hit somebody in the head, and they should have been ready. Oh, my bad, but look for it next time. Like,
Right.
you have to inspire others. You have to get others involved. As a point guard, if I know somebody's struggling shooting the ball, I got to get them better shots. So I think the point guard in my mind is the guy who is unselfish and has an understanding of everybody around them. And that doesn't matter whether you're a passing point guard or a scoring point guard, because I can score and I can pass. But I know if I come into a game and I know I'm unselfish enough to understand, I got to know how to read the room, and I have to know how everybody's doing, and I have to adjust because I have the ball in my hand, so I can always score when I want to score, and you got to be aware of that. Uh, so to
So
me,
you
like
talk.
that starts being a point guard.
So how did you get those lessons? Was it a lot of film sessions? Was it just in your ear as you're playing, like sidelines? He's talking to you. How did that teaching come about to you? What was the best way to do that?
Just through his conversation, or whether it's screaming, whether him talking to you, but he told you, right? This is what you're supposed to do. He's open, give him the ball, right? Care about your teammates, right? Understand, like if you watch me play in the NBA, there's times where I might have been in front of everyone, and I'll throw it back to the big so that he can get a dunk. Number one, I love assists too. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
two, I understand like that's a confidence boost when you can get an easy bucket. And I think sometimes in basketball now, we don't understand that because everybody's trying to figure out how to get off and be the man themselves. But when you really look at it and you watch the NBA and you watch players, forget that. When you start thinking about who's being drafted these days, even the older guys, they're drafting guys and they're putting guys in place and playing them right away, guys who know how to play basketball and play
Right.
from teams who play great basketball, team basketball. And those are the ones who are succeeding because the NBA is about you have a few superstars, you have some great players, but then you have a lot of great or average or below average role players.
hmm
And most of the league is created off of that.
But don't you think those lessons came from playing in the park versus playing in the AAU where you have one practice a week, if that,
Yes.
and then you're playing 8 games on a weekend. Whereas in the
Yes.
park, as you know, you got to figure out how to win with your five versus the group
Yes.
that you're so you could stay on for the next game, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And the difference is now, back in the day, and I hate to say that back in the day, but New York had New York players. Like when I played for the Gauchos, we practiced every day because
Right,
we were from around the same neighborhood. So I grew up playing from, I don't know, since I was 10 years old till I left high school with most of the same guys.
right.
And we practiced. I would go from my apartment building downstairs through the park to the gym at 6:30 in the morning before school. Eat some Rice Krispies and have a workout with Dave McCollins and then go to school. Then after school, come back to Mitchell Gym and play some more basketball and have a practice. So we practice all the time. So I played with players where even if you want to say I was the best player, when we played, either I came with it or somebody else came with it. Meaning it was never my team. Like I had these accolades. I was top 10 in the country out of high school,
Right.
but no one ever told me I was the guy. I was a part of something. And I had to come and play and establish that every time. So I never had the I don't know, the entitlement or the confidence or the cocky, whatever word I want to use, to walk in and say this is my team.
Yeah.
I get it.
Who were
Now I
some of
got
the
to
guys
ask
that
you.
were on those Gaucho teams, Rod?
Uh, Shucks, Boo Harvey, Derek
Yeah.
Cheevers,
Yeah,
uh,
Band-Aid, right?
yeah, Band-Aid. I just saw him in Missouri. My guys, Drederick Irving, Kyrie's pops, Tyrone Joy, who I played in high school with. It was a lot of guys we grew up with. And then after a while, we had other guys that would come in and play with us. Lloyd Daniels, he
Oh
was
yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
He was in the city back then, right?
yeah.
He's in Jersey now training kids and stuff. I ran into him at a St. Rose game not too long ago to watch the kid
He's a
Matt
legend.
Hodge who went to Nova.
And I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I speak enough about Lloyd Daniels. We talk about the greats and the point guards and all that. Lloyd Daniels should really realistically be a part of that.
Yeah.
Lloyd Daniels, if he didn't have to go through what he went through, we would be talking about him with greatness.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, legendary. Like he's that type of talent, like no doubt about it. And for some reason, and myself included, we forget to really speak about Lloyd Daniels.
I agree with you. He was something else. I got to see him play a few times back in the day, and he was something. He really was. And he's working with
Yes,
kids now, which is a great thing too. So
yes,
he's sharing the
yes,
knowledge with the younger group. So
yes.
so I'm gonna name some guards that came out around the time you did. Tell me, in a couple words, a little bit about each guy, what made him so good. Okay. So
Yep,
let's start with Marbury, Stephon Marbury.
man. Stephon Marbury's a pit bull in me. Uh, if I look at New York guards and I had to say who had the total package, Steph Marbury. Athletic, can shoot the ball, uh, can assist, uh, and just had a mean disposition about himself. Like I'm Stephon Marbury is like
Yeah,
he's all of those things. He should be a Hall of Famer. He's done so much in high school, college, pros, and overseas. Like Steph to me, and I don't want to. I'm exclude Nate Tiny Archibald because he's older
right.
and
Yeah.
and one of my legends. Steph is like the point guard to me.
He's the prototypical point guard in your
Like
estimation.
for New York City, I think
Right.
Steph is like yes,
Okay. How about Sham God? God Sham God.
man. He got his own move. Like
That's right.
I always say that. Like Sham, he didn't have the success in the NBA, great college career, but he has a move. Like Shamgar is legendary. And then now he's in the pros and he's giving those gifts back to others.
Yeah.
So I salute and respect Sham. But like whenever I think about Shamgar, like everybody's talking about the Sham. You have young people that are trying to do a move that you were the one who created, perfected, or whatever. Uh, but he's obviously another New York legend.
You talked about this guy earlier. What about the Pearl Washington?
My idol, like if you got the mountain, for me, he's at the top. I think when I look at myself and I looked at his video when he passed, like I patterned my game after him. The in
Yeah.
and out crossover, I may have uh, put a little spin on it and in and out behind the back, but I wanted to run like Pearl. I wanted to have Pearl's demeanor. Like Pearl inspired me. Like I had an inspiration every summer to go sit somewhere and watch somebody inspire me to be like them.
Yeah, that's
You know
cool.
what? You got a lot of the same humility he had. You really do.
Yeah, Pearl is the best. Pearl is the best. Like Pearl, like when I left when I was in the NBA and Pearl wasn't in the NBA, when I saw Pearl Washington, I had the same vibe and feeling as a little kid watching him. Like he always was in my highest regard because of the inspiration that he gave me.
Yeah, really good. And as great a player as he was probably a greater guy too. I mean, really, really good guy.
Yeah.
So
You know,
humble.
he was one of the best. All right.
Hmm.
Last couple in this thing, Kenny Smith and Kenny Anderson.
Kenny Anderson, talent personified. Like Kenny was the guy. Like Kenny had, I remember me and Mark Jackson, who I have to speak about.
Yep.
Like we were on the Knicks together, almost like fanboying on him. Like Kenny captivated New York City and then the country. Like Kenny was a phenomenon. Like Kenny was different. Kenny went
Yeah.
to college and Kenny put on a show. Right?
I
So
remember
Kenny,
he made Sports Illustrated when he was in ninth grade as Faces in the Crowd. You know, that little, when you first open
yeah,
a Sports
yeah,
Illustrated. So
yeah. Ken,
everybody heard about him.
Kenny is one of the most gifted, talented people we've seen in New York City.
Yep. Yep.
And Kenny Smith, I'll never forget watching Kenny Smith come to the Mitchell gym in the Bronx, and I just saw this dude like just hitting all these jump shots, and then he would just like he was like a quick dunker. He just flying through the air, dunking on people real smoothly.
Yeah.
Like Kenny Smith was like, he was like he went to North Carolina. He was that, right? Like just knew how to play, efficient, athleticism, know the game, shoot the ball, score the ball. Another New York City legend. And
A
then
little
my
more
guy Mark
polished.
Jackson,
Yeah. Mark. Yeah.
polished,
That's the other
yes,
guy.
A little
and
more
then Mark,
polished, right, Kenny Smith?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And as a player, as a person, like just yeah, Mark Jackson is like one of my all-time favorites. I had a chance to play with him. Obviously, it wasn't the best situation
Yeah.
because I wanted to play and he was the starter. So we had this, like, it was almost a friction because of that. But then it was also this admiration and respect. And then it was also this, like, fun comedy, like, we were, like, super cool, right? But it was just weird because the elephant in the room was who was going to play. And
Yeah.
both
Right.
wanted to play. But as we progressed and became professionals and went through all these years, my admiration for Mark Jackson is just goes through the roof. Because I watched him be a professional, I watched him deal with stuff, but I also watched him go from team to team and make an impact. Then I was also on a team with him where I saw that he made others think they were better than they were,
Yeah.
right? Then I watch him go on afterwards, and then I listen to his conversation. Then I watch him coach, and I watch what he did at Golden State to
Yep.
walk in there and change that whole entire culture and environment. He goes to ESPN and does what he does. He's Mark is like, and I say it like eyes behind his head, like one
Yeah.
of the greatest passers. So like I text Mark the other day and was like, I don't even think you know how much respect I have for you.
Yeah.
Mark is one of my faves.
And I tell you what, I think he was underrated, especially in college, because we played St. John's twice a year, sometimes more if we get him in the Big East tournament, you know.
Hmm.
And you look at the score, the scorebook, and you go, how the hell did he get 15 assists?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was one
yeah.
of
Well,
those
Luke,
things. Like it was so smooth, like you didn't even realize he was dropping
Yeah.
dimes everywhere.
And I
but
always mess with him because I try to one up him and I can't. But we beat him twice in St. John, so
I know
I
you
was on
did.
his podcast and I messed with him about that. He didn't remember the first one,
Of
but
course
I
not.
like I followed Mark when Mark was an assist. I was trying to catch Mark, like and not like it was just because of the respect I have for Mark. So
Yeah.
one of my all-time favorite players and people.
Yeah, and I know you
Luke
guys have.
Arneseka said he delivered the ball always in the right spot for the guy to score. That was like a huge compliment that he gave him. We were
Yeah.
talking to Coach Garnaseka. That was an
Yes.
interesting observation.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I know you guys were close because there was some story about when you guys were both playing with the Knicks how you guys went after each other and then laugh about it years later and stuff
No,
like
listen,
that.
I tried to start a fight with Mark because I came in pissed off one day. Mark tells Mark, we laugh about it all the time. He's like, I can't
Yeah,
believe you tried to fight me. Like, but I'm telling you, like, there was so much there was so much respect and admiration on both sides, but
yeah.
it had to be hidden because of the position we were in. As we got older, I think we were able to kind of show that.
So let's jump ahead now. We're talking about Mark and your a little bit of your pro career. We touched on stuff with the Knicks. Let's talk about some of your pro career. You had a long career. What what do you think gave you that kind of longevity? 17 years
Yeah,
is a hell of a long time, man. Not a lot of
Great
guys
career.
don't do
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's
yeah.
what do you attribute that to?
I think I was skilled. I think I had an IQ that I don't think I get enough
Yeah,
credit for.
I don't think
Uh,
you do either.
and I think that's sustained. I tell people like, I get introductions and all that. I was all NBA second team one year. Like
Yeah,
people forget about that. That means you telling me I'm top 10 and I didn't make the All Star. I led the
right.
league in assists. I was top 5 in assists almost every year. I retired sixth in assists and 19th in steals. So I'm like 13 assists now and where I'm at in steals. So I'm like top 50, top 25 in two categories. So, you know, again, I think there was a skill level. And professionally, I wish I would have been better, right? But my skill set kept me in the league.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't think I get enough credit for that. I think I'll put my skill set up with most or anybody. Whether you talk about careers and the numbers, there may be guys who will get me. But as far as skill set, handling the ball, making plays, IQ, I'll put myself up there with a lot of people.
Well, there's a
Well,
lot to
with
it too, between when you're coming from being a young guy and now you're in the league and you're a professional athlete. There's a lot of other things that go into it. You got to take
Yep,
care of yourself. You got to eat right.
yep,
You got to do
yep,
all that kind of stuff.
yep. And I wasn't good at all the other stuff. Like I wasn't professionally, I wasn't great at that. And that kind of, that took its toll. And I tell people, if you look at the 90s, if you look at my 10 years in the 90s,
Yeah,
you're going to see close to 17 points, close to 9 assists, 4 or 5 rebounds, almost 2 steals. Like you're going to see that, you know.
yeah,
But because of my professionalism, as I got older, now I'm going to my last 5 years, I'm with 17. You know what I mean? Because of that. And so now the numbers dwindle because people don't believe in you the same. The contenders are not messing with you. So you got to go to the teams who are not good. Those situations are never great. So and I'm not blaming that. I'm just giving the fact,
yeah,
which I have a lot to do with.
exactly. Who were some of your favorite matchups, Rod, that when you were in the league? Who were some of the guys you loved going up against?
Well, that's hard to say love
Well,
because
you know what I mean.
some of the I know.
we get it.
Some
We get it.
Yeah,
But
right.
some
I
of
get
those
that too.
guys, like Tim Hardaway, was a headache. Kevin
Yeah,
Johnson was a headache. Gary Payton, Sam Cassell. Like I can go on and on and on, and I'm gonna forget people. Then we can go later on to the Allen Iversons and the Stephs and all those guys.
yeah,
But Isaiah Magic, like I had to play against night in and night out. Like I think it was always a challenge, and I had to at some point decipher. And I heard Nick Van Exel talk about this the other day, and I'm like, Dad, we were thinking alike. Because I had Johnny Davis tell me one day at Portland, you got to go get him before he gets you. And I heard Nick Van Exel say that somebody told him that. And so that's the game within the game
yeah,
when you're dealing with players, right? I know I'm going against Nick Van Exel or somebody who's like a scorer that can score in bunches, Tim Hardaway that can embarrass you. Man, I got to go at you first because I got to let you know I'm here for I'm here for all of that.
right.
Uh, and so there's always a game inside the game. But man, there was so many challenges. Man, I'm giving you the guys offensively, but then you had the Nate McMillans, the Derek Harpers, the Greg Anthonys, the Chris Childs, the Eric Snows, the Lindsey Hunters, like the
Yeah.
tough defensive guys you had to go against.
You delivering them. That's covering some. That's covering some ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you played on some good squads. I mean, some of those Portland teams were unbelievably talented, right?
Yes, yes. I played. I mean, in DC, we was talented. We were
Yeah.
just young,
Yeah.
and they didn't give us a time enough
Yeah.
to gel. But like, even with the Knicks, with the younger teams, like we had good teams. I just never had the opportunity to sustain with that kind of team and mature. And again, I think I got to take a hit on some of that.
Yeah. Who were some of your favorite teammates you played with?
Kevin Garnett comes out to my mind right away. Like I just thought he was the best, the most intense dude. Uh,
Intense.
but he
Yeah.
took care of the young fellas. Great teammate, the funniest guy, greatest storyteller, but like a pro's pro. Uh, who else? Clyde Drexler. I
Yeah.
played with
Clyde.
so many guys. I'm gonna start forgetting guys, but Kevin Garnett stood out to me like right away. Like he was one of my faves. Then I had Juwan Howard, C. Weber. You know what I mean? I was with
Yeah.
Pat. I was with Mark. I played with a lot of teams.
A lot of yeah.
You know, a guy who really, man, I went to Miami and I didn't like Alonzo Mourning. I never really liked Alonzo Mourning. He always had
Right.
the growl, always saying something crazy. And I remember going to a function with, I think it was the Juwan Howard's function, and we sat in a limo together, and we talked. I was like, man, I like this dude. And I told him, I said, man, I couldn't stand you.
That's
Then I
that
went,
Georgetown stuff, man. That's that
yeah,
Georgetown mystique is
yeah.
what that is, Rod.
And then I went to Miami, and he was on the decline. He had all the issues and all that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I never heard him talk one bad thing about one player. We
Yep.
started out struggling 0 for 11, and with with his greatness, the easiest thing for him to do would be to blame everybody else around him. Not
No.
one not one time did he do that. Not
No.
one time.
He's not that guy, man. He was on the show. We had him on the show, and he had to get out. He had to get we had to cut it short, but he could have went on and on and on. I mean, he's
Yeah.
that kind of guy, and he so humble and so gracious, and just
Uh,
just an intelligent guy, great to talk to. Really good to talk to.
yeah.
So now you wind up getting into the coaching field, right?
Yep.
So talk about that for a second. You worked a little bit for Coach Calipari, right?
Yes. Yes.
How was that?
So
How was that working for him?
it was great. I'm studying under a great.
Yeah,
I was with Cal 3 years in Memphis, 5 years in Kentucky, 4 Final Fours, one national title. So it was great. And
yeah,
and then from there I went to USF. Uh, wasn't the greatest experience, but an experience in itself. Then I went to the NBA and became an executive in the league.
right.
I don't think people understand. I was kind of a big part of Team Ignite and putting that together.
Yeah,
Uh, and then from there, I become a head coach at LIU. And, so I have another challenge in front of me. I'm in my third year. I had 2 rough years. We're 4-10 right now. We're getting ready to go into conference.
hmm
Uh, I like my group. We still going through some injuries, but you know how it is. In the
Oh,
NEC
yeah,
South Conference is everything. So I'm
yeah.
looking forward to that.
Well, I got to ask you about coaching, now in 2024, 25, and with all of the changes and the cultural changes in the game of basketball with NIL, the portal, the transfer portal, it's got to make it difficult for a team that's a mid-major team like LIU. Okay.
Hmm.
Do you find yourself getting poached and losing kids like it's going out of style, or that's my first question, and I have a backup to that too. These kids that come in, they're so coddled and so entitled, it seems like. How do you deal with that as a guy that's had the career that you had, and
Yeah,
know what it takes to be a pro for 17 years?
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
dealing with that kind of stuff. Tell me how that affects you.
yeah. It's all an adjustment. Uh, the NIL is the NIL. We all fall under the same rules and
Yeah,
guidelines, so we all got to figure it out. So at the end of the day, yes, schools are going to poach from us. It's going to happen. It's going to be a
yeah,
part of it. We as a university, myself, we have to figure out ways to be creative so that we can be a part of that discussion.
yeah,
Uh, and I'm working on that as well. So, we got to figure it out, right? And I'm not above that. We have to figure it out. As far as players, yes, it's a different environment because you have NIL, because now it's a money conversation. But also, like I grew up, and when I played and I walked outside my house and I failed, I had to fail with myself. I couldn't go home with my parents and all of that. I had to figure it out. Now
hmm
you have social media, you have all these different voices in your ear. So yeah, and there is an entitlement, but we created that, right? The atmosphere, the AAU, all of that, we created that. So for me, it's trying to figure out how do I make sure when you come in my environment, you understand that you can't fall under the entitlement thing, and I have to create a culture, and it hasn't been all easy, and it's
No,
still a work in progress, but these are the things that we're faced with. But I say we the adults, and we got to figure it out.
yeah. I mean, I talked to a lot of guys that we played with and against, or coaching or involved with that kind of stuff, and they all come, it's it's very tough to find that kid that is going to dive on the floor, is going to take a charge, is that tough kid. You don't see that like you used to. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a different, Do you find, Rod, that with your stature and everything that you've accomplished,
hmm
do the kids pay more attention to you when you're talking about certain things? Because they all want to get to where you've been. Do they pay more attention, or do you think it's and I don't want to use the word indifference because it's a negative connotation, but you know what
Right.
I'm saying.
Right. No, I think it. I mean, a lot of times it depends on the kids, right? Depends
Yeah,
on what's your goal, right? And that's why it's like trying to recruit young people who have an agenda, like, and meaning, like, there's something past college basketball, like, that you're really invested in, right? Because
yeah.
you'll have young people say they want to be a pro, but they won't do anything it takes to become a pro, right? And
They
then,
have no idea. Right,
and then they won't listen to a pro because if I gotta listen to him, then it's almost putting a mirror on me, right?
right,
So I gotta go against that because I can't be that, right?
right,
And I
right.
think we don't understand that part of the psychology of young people
Yeah,
because they're young. I remember when I was at Memphis in Kentucky, I had a friend of mine who coached at a high Division 1, and we were coaching the Dominican national team, and he told me, he said, "Man, if you go to a mid-major, man, them kids will listen to everything you say." Like, he was just soaking it up, telling me all the good stuff. And I went to USF, and I remember saying, "Wow, these kids." Because when you're at Memphis and you're at Kentucky, when you talk to a John Wall or a Derrick Rose, their eyes are open because they have their eyes on the prize, and they
right.
know what they want, and they are confident that they are that. But then you go to USF and you tell those young people, and you have the same conversation with them, it becomes frightening because they're not that. And because there's so many people who are saying they're pro, they have to defend that.
Yeah,
So so it's like being delusional. You're defending that knowing that you're not that. You understand what I'm saying?
yep. 100%. I
So
understand.
so it becomes a different psyche that you have to figure out. And it's not always easy. And yes, this is different times,
Oh
different
yeah,
psyche. Like but you got to understand what you up against. And like for me, like you said, I'm old school, right? We
Yeah.
didn't like you had the, toughness. I come from New York where you don't call fouls. So you
Right.
put two
Right.
people on my back and I feel like I can run through you. But
Right.
everybody's not like that. So you have to create an environment and a culture that helps them.
How do you do that, Rod, when, kids get up and like, did you lose a lot of kids from last year to this year?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
how do you do that? I mean, you gotta go in the portal and find a kid, right? I mean, it's got to be
Hmm.
tough, man, because you don't know unless you were recruiting him prior. You
Hmm.
don't know what kind of kid that is until you get him on campus, right?
Yep, and that's
And,
true. But everybody has to go through it. So I
right.
understand what you're saying, but like, who was it? Was it Arkansas? I think their whole team left last year. This is a
Yeah. Well,
SEC
yeah.
Power Five conference team. So
Right.
everybody's going to go through it. So
Yeah.
everybody's going to have to figure out how we do this year by year if that's the case,
Yeah.
right? So now you got to figure out your player development and then, your culture. But everybody's under the same roof, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm in
It's
the NEC, all the NEC guys are doing the same
yeah.
thing. SEC said, like, it is what it is, and you have to figure it out.
Yeah, it's got to be tough though, recruiting a kid. You think back when we played, you got recruited and you were basically there for 4 years. Okay.
Yep.
So the coach
Yep.
didn't have to keep recruiting Everson for 4 years. You
Uh,
got me. Okay. Now you got to recruit the same kid every single year just to make sure
every,
you keep
every
part of
single
your
year.
nucleus, right?
Every single year. So you don't know who's coming back on your roster.
That's nuts, man. I don't know how that's tough. That's got to be very difficult,
Yeah.
I don't get it, but one
Yeah.
last question, I'll let you go. Have you seen your old squad play? You seen DePaul play? They look pretty good. Last
I
couple
have
games have
not.
been sketchy, but
Yeah.
there's a team that's got 14 new guys,
Hmm.
whole new coaching staff, a brand new head coach, and
Yeah.
and they're playing the best ball I've seen DePaul play probably in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. No, I have not watched, but I've followed and I've seen the progress. I see where they at. I know they had a couple games of late. I know they're getting ready to go in the Big East, and that will tell the
Yeah.
test. But for the new coaching staff, it's about gradually growing and getting better and creating that culture and trying to get DePaul back to what I know of DePaul.
Did they bring any of you guys back for any events or anything?
No, no. And one thing I can say, and Dwayne Peavy's a different AD. He's from Kentucky. I know
Right.
Dwayne Peavy.
From when
I
you were
was
there,
there
yeah.
with him. But before Dwayne Peavy, and I can't even speak for now, but before Dwayne Peavy, I don't think DePaul did a great job of honoring their legacy and their former players.
Right.
Uh, if I know Dwayne from Kentucky being around Cal, and Cal was big with that.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Yeah, Jay also was big with that at Villanova. It was a whole, everybody comes back, and that's the thing that a kid that's coming to school there wants to see that
Yeah,
the guys
yeah,
come back. You're not just, all right, you're gone now. That's it. See
yeah,
you later,
yeah.
right? So,
And not doing it just to do it. Like,
right, right,
make it feel like something, like, make it feel like you're a part of it, or not even that you're a part of it, that you're appreciated.
correct. Yeah. Yep. I agree with you 100%. Well,
Mhm.
listen, we're up against it, man. Thanks so much. Hang out for a second. I'm going to close this up. Thanks so
Okay,
much for coming out and hanging with us. Appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. We had
absolutely.
Rod Strickland
Appreciate you.
today with us on the Big East Rewind. The Big East Rewind is produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. Check us out on the SiriusXM app, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast. Thanks a lot for joining us. Have a great night.